What's up, guys? Mark here. I am so excited for this episode of the podcast. I have my good friend Frank Sanchez. Frank is a technical SEO specialist and he works with brands that are doing big things. We're talking about 8, 9 figure, billion-dollar businesses. And in this episode today, we talk through what are some of the best practices when it comes to SEO in the future, with everything changing in the world of AI, and what are some of the things that he's done over the years to help grow the business into what it is today. I think you're going to love it, and stay tuned. It's a really good one, and I hope you enjoy. Frank, what's up, man? How are you? How's it going?
I'm good, dude. I'm really stoked to be in Orange County right now.
Yeah, same here. Same
Uh,
here. It is absolutely devastating what's happening in the West Side right now.
yeah,
Absolutely devastating. Yeah.
I mean, I spent 14 to October of 23 at Second in Montana, and like some of my best memories were hiking to Mescal probably 3 days a week, being in the Palisades, going to Malibu with the dog and the wife, and that's like over. Like that's done, and I think the chaos of like the last week, there's been like a pretty large shock, but I think like now it's really starting to set in. Like people are really starting to be like, oh, this actually like happened. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I just can't put it into words. I mean, I know I'm probably the same with you. I have so many friends that have lost homes and they're going to be okay. They got means, but it's still regardless, like losing your home, losing all your stuff, and two, just not knowing where to go next. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, I'm looking to buy a house right now, and I was walking a house in Orange County here, and the realtor actually was moved from LA to Orange County, and I think from like a housing market, which has already been super tough in LA County and now in Orange County, I think you're going to see a lot of the smart money that has the means just buying up anything they can. I know other brokers I've talked to, they're like leases, apartments, and houses for lease have like 20-person waiting lists. And, when you displace that many people and knowing how bad we are at building housing in California, like this is going to be a decade of problems.
yeah, it's
So,
it's going to be devastating. Because yeah, I mean, it we already have a housing shortage, and to just know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm in the same position. We're looking to buy a house, and I just don't feel like there's a future for in California. It's challenging. Yeah. So
yeah, the insurance component part of that also is just ridiculous. And, um, it's not like this like hasn't happened exactly to the T. This exact playbook, it happened. I just saw a documentary, um, in like 1961, there was this documentary, and it's like literally the exact same framework. It's like this fire starts, fire department gets there, hydrants run out. Like literally, like I almost thought when I saw this like trailer for this documentary, I thought it was AI. I thought it was somebody like making a
making up a
fake,
story on the
yeah, like
past.
making
Yeah,
like an old
for sure.
timey,
Yep.
like like one of those like riffs on like Star Wars in the 1950s, because it was like very old timey. The hydrants, they ran out, and it was just like this shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody. Like,
Yeah, we know the Santa Anas come every year. We know it hasn't rained in almost it hasn't rained in 9 months, like a solid rain. It was no surprise that this could happen, and just seeing the mismanagement. I think overall, I'm not trying to get political here, but I think overall the Democrats like wrote their their last song in Southern California.
I would like to think
Yeah,
that this fire may have some sort of cleansing effect on our political ecosystem, but it seems like everyone in this state fails up perpetually. Like failure is a prerequisite for advancement. Like Gavin destroys San Francisco, becomes our governor. We have a very feckless San Francisco DA, the, like
Yeah,
all these
Gascon
people.
destroyed, you created
Yeah,
a crime problem in Los Angeles. Yep, yep,
and like going to Kamala, like she's just
yep.
perpetually failed up and up and up. And when for me leaving LA was a few data points. Number one, my car got broken into twice. I got chased by an absolutely crazy person with a knife. Called the cops. Cops showed up, took the knife away, said basically like, "Hey, we're not gonna. If we arrest this guy, we have to take him into the hospital. It's going to cost the taxpayer X amount of money. What do you want to do?" And then they're going to let him go the next day.
Did you know the same exact thing happened to me in
Really?
Playa del Rey?
Oh, is that the guy that was trying to steal your dog or
He
something?
was convinced that he was smoking crack in a
Yeah.
boarded up house that a developer bought. It was 5:45 in the morning. Convinced that, I think he told you a story. He was convinced that I stole his husky and he wanted to see his teeth. And then he wanted me to call one of my family members. He's like, "Call your parents and I want to talk with them." And I'm like, "Get away from me." And he chased me down with a prison shank in his fingers. Like he's ready to stab me like this. Like literally crazy person like this is trying to stab me. I run to an old lady's house. She sees everything, let me in. He picked up boulders like he's getting ready to shove it. Same thing happened. 10 cop cars roll out, take out non-lethals. He gets on the ground. They find the weapon and they let him go. And they also left me and the old lady to clean up all of his shit that he left on her front yard. Like all of this bogus, like processed free food that he got somewhere. That was the last straw for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think I'm going to die that day, but I could have walked away pretty bloody. And that's just not right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that those call it like three scenarios. I have two citizens arrests in Santa Monica.
Wow.
So like literally like I like call the cops, follow the
Yeah.
person, get like yeah. So like I loved it. I loved living there. It's an amazing place to live. Um, and then it really, I watched BLM kind of like burn down my whole neighborhood, and then with COVID, they opened up the light rail and basically imported, um, you know, Skid Row to the to
2020 was the demise of the
yeah
West Side. Yeah.
yeah
Yep.
that was it. And the Palisades was pretty sheltered from that.
Yeah.
Not totally immune, but it was like definitely a safer space. Um, and then the absolute final straw was Karen Bass's election. Like here we have Rick Caruso. He literally has financial skin in the game. He's got some of the best retail experiences potentially in the world, located right there. He gets all the endorsements. He's a competent executive, and he loses to Karen Bass, and that was the kind of like Gotham moment, right? Like when the police chief, the ne'er do
Yeah.
well, the guy who's trying to rebuild the city, just is taken out, and I was like, okay, like I've got a kid on the way. I'm not going to fight this fight, and yeah, and so like many, we landed in Orange County, and I mean Orange County is it's like literally a different world, like.
It's like the Oasis. It's like I like to call Newport Beach the American Riviera because it's what
Yeah,
it feels when I'm here.
it's
It's and we still and I still like we still have homeless and some crime, but I still it's nothing like LA at all.
I have seen one homeless person in a year and a half of living in Laguna Niguel.
Yeah, you're in
One.
a good spot. I
I
mean,
mean,
they
Laguna
if they're
Niguel is
making their
like,
way into Laguna Niguel,
yeah,
they're hucking it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's definitely a different beast.
yeah,
But yeah, I think what is at least really cool is to see a lot of the philanthropies that are really starting to dig in and really starting to push, and all of our clients, you know, they're all doing really cool stuff. Compartes Chocolate, where they're putting together a We Love LA chocolate bar. 100% of the proceeds are going to go to different charities, and even like some of our accounts you wouldn't think about are like all trying to do their part if they're LA based. So I think that's been really cool. It reminds me a lot of COVID, like the early days of COVID. It's like we're almost having like our micro COVID. It feels kind of like that. Like
yeah.
hold on, I have to wear a mask outside,
Hmm.
and all of our clients and all of our team is supporting one another, and like everyone's kind of freaking out, and they should be. Um, but yeah, I think if this doesn't change the trajectory of our politics, I don't think anything will at this rate.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree. It's interesting though. It's like, have you seen what Grant Cardone's doing?
No,
He wants to run for governor of California. So he's actually doing, I just saw that he's doing a rally
really.
in California. He got like a bus and he's doing like, I think like a 10-15 stop. He's the first Republican to actually like, that's got a following since, let's say, since the governor.
Like the Grant
Yeah.
Cardone?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wow.
He said he'd move back to California. He's moving. I don't know if he said he's officially moving back to California or if he's like just doing this tour, but he's trying to make his big move into politics now. And, you know, yeah,
I think Caruso should go for it.
I
Like
100% think Caruso should. Yeah.
I think he
He should
should
get
go
it.
for it. He can get
Absolutely.
it, Um, or I mean, literally anyone with a pulse could beat this team of nincompoops right now. I mean, I would love to see. He just got swooped up by the Trump administration, but like David Sachs would have been
Yeah.
amazing.
David Sachs would have been awesome. Yeah.
Like, yeah, like
Yep.
there's so many people that could do better than this, and I think you're just seeing this too globally. Like, I think the curtain is lifted on a lot of these ideas that don't really pencil in at the bottom of the. They're actually running
Yeah.
quite in the red. So
Well, I think too, like the big issue, obviously, with Los Angeles and Southern California in general is like coastal elites that vote one way, right? And are pretty sheltered. And that coast line of Palisades up to Malibu is pretty coastal liberal,
yeah,
voting one way. That's the way in the highway. And I think this is a big wake up call
yeah,
to a lot of people to be like, you know what? They really don't care about us. And they really didn't have our best interests. And they didn't really put the funding in the infrastructure to play. And granted, it was a firestorm. Like
yeah,
I'm talking to buddies that are firefighters. They're like, you need like 4 engines. There's 5 guys on an engine. So you need like 25 firefighters per house. You had 10,000 houses on fire. There's not even that many fire engines in the state of California to be in one area. So yeah. But yeah, I
yep.
mean, the question is mitigated if things were done differently, right?
I mean,
What would have happened?
growing up in Florida, our one of our houses is up against federal preserve, and like clockwork, that thing gets burned every 4 years. They're doing a control burn
Yeah.
when on a non-windy day, and I think I, I think it takes 4 years of red tape to even get a control burn through the approval process in California, and that's just insane. And people are saying, "Oh, people, he's politicizing this." You know, Trump has been literally like on this
He's been
for
talking about it through
for
his whole
like
campaign cycle. Yeah.
like in and
Yep.
before that, back in
Yeah,
18,
absolutely. Yeah.
like it's like wow. It's not like he's just jumping on this bandwagon now. He's been very, very vocal about the mismanagement of this. Um,
And
so
it's crazy because it's not just him, but you look at the head of the fire the fire union in LA, sound bites of him talking at last spring, talking about how we have less firefighters than we did in the 60s when we had 50% of the population in Los Angeles.
that's
And it's like, how do you
that's
compete
insane.
with that? You know? And the fire department is like, I mean, if there's anyone that needs adjustments for inflation, it's them. They have infrastructure, they've got
Yeah,
labor. You
yeah,
you can't fight needing infrastructure and labor with inflation. The budget needs to go up to adjust,
yeah.
so especially with the minimum wage at 20 bucks an hour in California, So there needs to be a market adjustment, but regardless, it'll be interesting to see what happens throughout this, and we can only pray that things will move in a better direction, right? Frank, let's hear a little bit about your background, man. Like, how did you get started in this world of marketing and advertising?
Yeah, organic. It was an organic path, man. I wanted to be a real estate broker. I made the great idea to start that in 2009, and then I listed a few properties, and then got swooped up by a ad tech platform for the commercial real estate space. Did that for a few years, um, and then quickly realized like that market was pretty behind the times from a marketing standpoint. You're trying to sell somebody ad space, and they're like, I don't want anyone to see my website, it's terrible. And then from there, met up with my co-founder, and it was fun. It was just like, hey, we're building websites, selling ads, and it was just a really great kind of like learning period where I was blessed to have a full-time job and a side hustle. Um, and then we wound up basically taking down a project that we had no business taking down. It was massive. It was a $450 million company that needed a website. We bid it. We didn't think we'd win it, and then we got it. And we were like, "Oh my god! Like we just won this website project." Is just two guys hustling with and
Wow.
um, we built the site. It went great. We were doing marketing for them, but we quickly realized like we didn't have the robust enough skill set to actually do marketing for them. Like we were helping, we were introducing like wild ideas, like running Google ads and B2B um, and so we said, hey, like let's go find a home. Let's go find a home for this client. It's really big. And at that point I was out of my ad tech job and wanted to just get a crash course in how one does digital marketing. And so I went to an agency. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was like the quintessential big agency. And literally, I would just interview every single person in every department at the agency that I was basically running sales for. Um, and like I would just get to know, okay, what's this strategy? What's this strategy? They're working on great accounts. And so I was just a sponge, just trying to learn as much as I could. Um, and then, we got an equity offer to join that firm and a base salary and all that stuff. And I really thought about it and I said to myself, the culture here isn't great. I don't think they're really running things how, if this was my company, I would run things. We had brought in probably 18 opportunities that were great opportunities. I'm going from selling ads to basically selling
Yep.
an agency. We closed one of the 18. So I was like, there's obviously some structural issues here. Um, because I knew these customers very well. I knew they had the budget, and the way we were going about it was the whole sales process was super convoluted and just really drawn out. And I'm talking like 100-page presentation decks. And so I said, I think we're just going to do this on our own. We've just got a crash course on how to do it. And it was like that kind of aha moment. I took one piece of paper, I printed out, here's exactly what we're going to do for you. We printed it out. I went back to the 18 accounts that I had pitched at the other agency, and I said, hey, this is what we're going to do for you, and we're going to do it at this rate, and it's going to be great. And we keep building super simple. Here's the team we built. We built our own team, and we're off to the races. So, that was the journey of us like starting the company. It was trial by fire. It really was. It was like to some extent fake it as you make it, but we still always had that like technical background and expertise in website development. And then, man, you remember the good old days. Like pre iOS 14.5, it didn't matter. Like you'd even have to be good. Like you just throw ads up there and you're
Yeah.
cranking 10x.
Interest
Oh
targeting,
my
a million,
gosh.
3 million person audience, even a half a
Oh,
mil
it was
audience.
like it was such a fun time to do marketing when, and now we have those moments in marketing, right? Like you have those
Yeah.
moments where things work that well, and it's basically Black Friday. Like Black Friday is like the one time of the
Yeah.
year where it's like, hey, it feels pre iOS 14.5, you know?
Yep. Yep. Or you just hit that product market fit at the right time. Like we have a client, I think you're familiar with Plain Tags. I've told
Yeah,
you about him. We've worked with for, 8 years plus now. And we launched a licensing collab where they made coasters out of the fuselage of Qantas 747s. And it was coasters, right? Coasters during the holidays. Australia brought Qantas coasters. Simple creatives. We had we had the team. I told the team to actually buy just one of those Osmo, 3 creators, like with the little gimbal. And I'm like, just film your guys' self around the office. Just do simple stuff. Send to our editors. Do some simple cuts. So
yeah,
organic. I mean, we saw CACs at sub
wow,
$10. I think when we first launched it, $4 or $5 on an AOV of 220
wow.
bucks off that cohort
How
to
much are these?
Australia,
How much are these
right?
coasters? These are expensive coasters.
The coasters were over
What?
200
That's
bucks. Like they were, plus with the Australian
right.
taxes and the
Yeah,
shipping, it's not cheap. But it just, you hit those times and you're just like, oh
yeah.
my God, it's all about timing. It's all about the right product, new opportunity, something that no one's ever seen before. But I couldn't buy coasters off Alibaba and sell them for 20
Right. Yeah.
bucks,
You
through
got it.
ads.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That uniqueness must have really, I mean, and of course, Qantas is like, it's like a prestige brand there. It's like, it is one of the best
yeah,
airlines I've ever been on. It's
it is. It's
amazing.
great.
Um, but
Well, that's cool.
yeah.
So you guys obviously launched the agency on your own, and like how's the road been?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's been a lot of challenges on the
Y-
years, but a lot of wins too,
Yeah.
right?
I think, it's been awesome. I mean, it really is like, I'm a sales guy at heart, and, I love growth, and I think it's like my driving mission. And so, post iOS 14.5, we took a hard look at the business, and we were kind of thinking like, hey, all these brands, they're really like laser focused on paid ac, and we didn't turn that side of our business off at all. But we did have some talent on our team that was really SEO focused, and we were looking at like the high growth brands that were out there and realizing they've been so focused on paid acquisition that they've really neglected their entire organic presence, like completely. Um, so we thought about that pretty hard, and we said, okay, like this is a massive opportunity because you're still looking, in 20, up until like the last few years, you were P1, you're potentially getting of that position one, the 10 blue links, you could get, 30 to 40% CTR. And so, that was a really awesome place to be, and started kind of pitching that to our current accounts. Like, hey, like it's definitely more of a product. Like the brands have to be right to do growth SEO, or that's our methodology. But man, when they hit, it is just like amazing to see essentially free traffic, minus the cost of implementation and content and backlinks and all the things. But when you see that really start to hit, it's quite exciting. And um, you know, leading leading into COVID, we were really scared of COVID when it happened. But it turned out that every single day for a lot of our clients on paid ac, it was like Black Friday. Like we just couldn't keep stuff in stock. So, the SEO side of that, really kind of forged our team and say, hey, like we're going to keep paid ac, we're going to keep our dev resources, and let's really figure out the framework for building the outsourced SEO team. Um, and there's always those like few key accounts you win along the way. Um, and so we had a few of those kind of billboard accounts where we the timing was right. They needed, the question is, do I in-house an entire SEO team, or do I go find the smartest team I can find at a fraction of the cost of the in-house team? And I think that was where our value proposition really started to resonate with customers we were talking to and prospects. And yeah, fast forward today, we've got a lot of traction with some amazingly huge e-com brands. And then outside of that, what I also love about SEO is that it's kind of industry agnostic, right? Like we're really competing for doing the best job to hit the algorithm. So it, yes, there's like small tweaks here and there, but the methodology essentially works for any company that wants to rank.
That's awesome. And I'm just curious, where do you see SEO going in the future? Like with organic search specifically? I mean, with so many different options now, and I mean, search going so much further than just Google. Like, where do you see it?
Man, that is the question right now. So a few facts. Year over year, global searches on the whole are up within the Google platform. So we're not seeing those search volumes really take a massive hit. Certain keywords, certain keyword groups, yes. Like it is interesting to see. Like CBD is my favorite example. Remember how hot CBD was?
Yep. 2021,
It is like
2020.
the search volumes for CBD are just
Yeah.
boom, like not
It
happening.
was like acai in
Yeah,
2014.
yeah. But on the whole, global search volumes are consistently up, and so there's a lot. More people are having access to these platforms, and population growth and things like that. So the future of search, I don't think it's not that people aren't searching, it's that they're searching in different ways. And then you have platforms that I think are capturing a lot of the search, right? So like Amazon is its search engine, YouTube's a search engine, Reddit's a search engine. And so I think the evolution of like the organic search process is really going to be focused on discoverability, right? Am I finding the solution that I'm asking for? And answer engine optimization from a principled approach at its core, it's still 60 to 70% traditional SEO, right? Like, hey, you have to have the content, you have to have the presence, you need to have the links, you need the structured schema, you need all these things to be discoverable. So I think there's a bit of like a rebrand happening within SEO, and I'll be the first to call it out. Like AEO is the new
Yeah.
SEO, and I think that's great marketing. But a lot of the conferences that I've been at, no one has a great solution yet as to like really measuring impact. And so there's some tools that you can start to see it in. But I think my aha recently was for a customer. I went into analytics and looked at referral traffic and saw that in the last 30 days they had 128 inbounds from ChatGPT, and that's when the light went off for me. I was like, okay, we can track it, we can improve it, and the foundation of all of this is still SEO. So I think the future of SEO isn't going to be about 10 blue links. It's about page one visibility. So Google Ads, you have to be running Google Ads now. I mean, the layout shifts that we saw, I mean, we kind of got a little sneak peek at what those were going to look like. But yeah, going straight into shopping feeds, you need to have a presence on Google Ads. Google, it's a bit of a power play there for Google. They want all the click traffic they can
Mm-hmm.
paid for. So Google Ads is a must. I think on the discoverability side, um, YouTube is a must. You're getting that local search features, and FAQs. And so if you're providing all that stuff on your site, if you're actually putting forth FAQ sections that are going to be indexed, I think there's still a substantial gain for SEO. Um, but the bigger question is like, how does SEO fit into the overall marketing strategy? Like, it's not like this bee's knees, this panacea of free traffic like it was. We have seen click through rate compression. But what's so interesting is when we do have a piece of informational content rank for a great search volume keyword, um, you're going to see that all that traffic's populating your pixels and your retargeting and everything and your email signups and all that. So I think of it as like it's absolutely a necessity and potent thing to be doing for future proofing your business, but really reconstructing the how we're evaluating it. Like last click attribution on SEO or any organic traffic outside of brand is quite hard to figure out. Like you can do it, but really you want to look at the effectiveness of the incrementality of just all that traffic over time, compiling at scale. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but it's something that I like literally spend a lot of time, a lot of waking hours thinking
Yeah.
about.
I think it's interesting what you said. It's almost like SEO is becoming like content infrastructure for your business, where there's a technical aspect, a creative aspect to it, but it's more of just farming the land consistently year after year, keeping the land nurtured, having it pay dividends than trying to hunt, for a quick win here and there, and you might get some spikes, right? But if you're not doing it, if you're not investing into it, your competitors, especially if you're at scale or a larger brand, are probably doing it.
Every,
And
everybody's
yeah,
yes, and so I think that's where it is a great moat, right? Like if you're absolutely dominating SEO, it is a solid moat. Like brands right now that are relying on TikTok to drive a vast majority of their of their
yes,
business, like yeah, they should be freaking out.
yeah,
Um and I didn't think it was going to happen today, but yeah,
yeah, it's pretty
it's
wild.
wild. So,
It's
and
happening.
that was part of the whole thought. Like when iOS 14.5 happened, we saw our performance on accounts just fall off a cliff. And I said to myself, like, hey, like our entire business model when we were so focused on meta ads was tied to a platform change that was completely out of our control. So of course then we go to SEO and that's completely out of our control. And looking back at this last like I lose count of how many algorithm updates we've had in the last 18 months. Like it is insane. I think it's over 6. And the years prior to ChatGPT, we would get like 1 to 2 algorithm updates. It was pretty steady. It was fairly predictable. And so now is the time when your in-house team is really not going to perform against an agency. Like we're managing 50 SEO 50 clients SEO at any given time. And so we're seeing stuff over here that we might not, it is forcing us to be laser focused on this. So, with an internal team, you're going to get groupthink, you're going to get complacency. But we'll see something that works over here and bring it over there, or go over to different industries. So I think, yeah, like every update that's happened, our clients have fared very, very well if they've been working with us for at least 6 months. The worst is when you bring on a new account and like the next day there's an there's
Yeah,
an algo update. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's I think the practitioner role of the agency is like alive and well right now, especially with how expensive in-house teams are getting, with how many resources you need to do so much at the end of the day. And like when things go south, like things are all good
right,
and dandy, right? When things are great, they're great. Who cares
right.
who's doing it? But when things get bad and you've got a bloated payroll and no solution can be made, that's a really scary time. Or like what's happening right now at TikTok. A platform goes down. We've been around long enough. We've seen the slaps, the Google slaps, the Meta slaps, the email slaps. Like you get a slap every
How
couple
about Snap?
years,
Remember,
and it
remember
slaps you around the
Snapchat?
face. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I sometimes I met with some Snapchat reps at
yeah.
a partner event, and I was just like,
Oh, you
I
guys are
was
still
like,
here? Yeah.
I think their stock had fallen like 25% in one day, and I was just like, oh my
Yep.
gosh, like. And now it's so funny. I got an email from TikTok's partner program today, which we're in, and I was just like, man, you're kind of tone deaf. Like maybe this was an automated email, but like, you know, terrible timing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think part of the thing through with because it's the same with our TikTok partner rep. There's just a lack of like transparency that the holdco is actually even giving their
Yeah,
staff. And this has been an issue for the last like 6 to 8 months where no one really knows what's going on. You're working week to week. Top that with the fact that the Beijing team hasn't invested into building a proper platform in TikTok Shop, regardless. If that thing just worked the way it's supposed to, you know, it's like the joke of the industry. It's like, and it's obvious that Beijing did not want to double down on the infrastructure because they were afraid that this was going to
yeah,
happen. But I think everyone in the industry can say for a whole that they're frustrated with the platform because it just doesn't work. There's so many product feed issues, the policies, the transparency, the lack of support, mixed with the fact that they don't want to play with the U.S. government. And say what you want to say about it. I mean, their executives lied, on you can't lie when you're in front of Congress, right?
yeah.
There's going to be some impacts to that, so I think matched with
Are
a
you
lot of
stoked?
things.
Are you stoked?
Me, I got to tell you, I'm bummed for because I have some friends that work
Yeah,
at TikTok. I am bummed for that. As for like me getting emotional, this is the first time we've had like another one of these internet platform slaps, and I'm just not
yeah,
phased at
yeah,
all. And it feels good to not be phased because it's like this is part of how the internet works. And if you're in this business long enough, this is going to happen again and
yeah,
again and again. And if you just get emotional about it, I think it's interesting because you got so many young entrepreneurs that are like either just influencers or selling a course or just a content creator going live every day selling nut butter on TikTok and making a killing, whatever it is. And now that platform's going to
yeah,
be gone,
yeah,
right? And now they're going to have to realize, like, like I shouldn't have put all my eggs into an unstable basket that's
yeah,
going to break.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah. I mean, I can't imagine Zuck is not just so stoked today. Like this is
well,
regulatory
it's,
capture at its finest,
yes,
right? Like the
yes.
ladder's pulled up.
Perfectly planned with the video from last week plus the Joe
I
Rogan
mean,
interview plus the Trump presidency. He orchestrates and operates
yeah.
tier 1 top Bezos, Mark up there, Elon at the top. I mean, this is perfect. I've never been happier for him. He's in incredible shape. He's living his best life, surfing,
I
jujitsu. Like he's actually being a cool dude now,
yeah.
and he's making the right moves.
It's what's
So
so
yeah,
there was a period of time around iOS 14.5 where data privacy was the what's so funny is if you look back at the timeline here, right? Like data privacy was this boogeyman, right? It forced iOS 14.5, you know, what we saw, in 6 months, we saw 98.3% of users had opted out of iOS users had opted out with sharing data. Fast forward to today, we have a government, a foreign adversarial government like
yeah, yep,
actor managing a very amazing platform. And he must just be thinking to himself, Zuck, like, I can't believe this. Like, these guys are not only stealing the data, but they're using it for potentially, malicious uses. And
They have they have location data, they have names, they have emails, they have phone numbers, they now have credit card info.
right,
They have purchasing
that's my point.
behavior.
Like, can you like just rewind to when the whole Apple war with Tim Cook and Zuck about data sharing? Now it's like, hold on, all that was like meaningless compared to where we are
Yeah.
now. So I always kind of think about this, like, to some extent, what if there was just a little bit of balls? What do you think this message from Meta, which was Facebook and Instagram back then, how do you think this message would have been taken? Putting on my Zuckerberg thought process
Yeah.
here, but well, this is a free thing that we provide for you, and if you are not interested in sharing your data with
Yep.
our platform, we will be deactivating all your Instagram accounts. There was no TikTok. There was no Snapchat. Like,
If you went full
dude,
press, then
like,
that would have been
I mean,
really
like,
interesting.
there's not one
Yeah.
person I know, and especially in this new environment
Yeah.
with TikTok getting all this hate for this data, right?
Yep.
Like, and everyone's just
Absolutely.
like, oh, la di da, our data. But there was such like an unnecessary concern about Apple getting your data back then. It's like,
And it was such a ridiculous data point. I mean, it was all in. I don't know if you listened. I didn't listen to the whole Joe Rogan interview that Zucks did, but I saw some
yeah,
bits of it. He talked about the whole thing, and it was the whole data privacy thing was so obviously politically motivated, and also just a a, a demonizing tactic by
yeah,
Apple, because Zuck said that when they were designing those new, Meta glasses, he said that they wanted access to the same like protocol that the Apple AirPods get, and he's like, we wanted it to be able to work the same way, and Apple would not give them access to that protocol to build it into the application, and they were like, why won't you give us? It's proprietary. Well, it's not really proprietary if you can use it, right? You just don't want to give anyone else access
yeah.
to it. So all of these things with data privacy and this and that, it's all just Apple wanting to control its ecosystem at the end of the day.
Do you know one person that would have deleted their Instagram account
No.
if they had?
If you don't
Right.
opt into this, we're just going to delete
No
your
one.
account and you won't be able to
Right.
log in
And then,
anymore. No one
yeah,
would have
and,
done
and
it.
then the greatest
Absolutely.
marketing machine outside of Google search in the history of the world would still be amazing. And that's where I think that was a
Yep.
miss, because again, like, fast forward today, we're shipping everything over to our number one political threat, and we're lazy. We're just like, okay, it's part of the game, no worries. So I think, yeah, it's wild, man. It's absolutely wild. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not like a TikTok agency right now. I'm super stoked.
Yeah. Or, if it's just funny, these guys that, went from like Amazon FBA to now TikTok Shop, next week they're going to be chirping up some other, scheme on the internet, running ads. It's like you have these fads just roll in and out. And it was evident that, hey, if no move was going to be made, this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And now, I'm happy we never doubled
Yeah,
down on the
I am too.
platform.
I mean, I looked at
Yeah.
all the data and I saw great impressions. I saw great clicks. I never really saw, you know,
I think it's the conversion
yeah,
opportunity just wasn't there, and I don't know if it was because of the algorithm. It doesn't make any sense why they couldn't have replicated and like built a robust algorithm, but it just, for whatever reason, it wasn't there. Yet at the same time, you have all this organic sales that are coming through, which is really
yeah.
interesting, and I don't know.
I definitely put
So
it in the awareness category um, of the media mix, and I do think like awareness was another big just overall awareness, iOS 14.5, I thought like that was a pretty big miss. To some extent, there was some value in arbitraging CPMs just from a pure, I don't care about what happens here. I'm just trying to get messaging out. I thought that, that's kind of the lens I put on Snap and TikTok was like, okay, for those accounts that we're going to do it in, like we're going to do it with the expectation of very little actual ROI, just to be on that platform. But oftentimes I feel like everyone's trying to find the new greenest thing to do. When if you just double down on Meta and Google at the end of the day, and you do it better, if you could just do
You just do the basics and you do it really
right,
good every single day.
exactly,
It's the same, like I say, with retention. It's like I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel when I work with a new client on retention, on the retention side of things. I'm just trying to send 2 to 5
yeah,
campaigns a week, trying to expand to SMS, get into push, now direct mail, and follow the
yep,
protocol, and you'll make a lot of money. Everyone's looking for a rabbit out of a hat, but at the end of the day, it's just the fundamentals and the basics, and doing it really, really good and planning 3 to 6 months in advance. And that's the secret,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. It's wild.
So one thing I wanted to bring up too, and obviously TikTok's, moving and it's gone, but I was interested in just seeing the search function within, and just the amount, especially with Gen Z using TikTok for
Yeah.
search. I'm curious if you guys saw any impact of that with your clients over the last year or two.
So I think like the core impact that you're seeing on search right now isn't a different platform taking over, because it's really hard to actually quantify what percentage of that is going away, right? So just from like a first principles perspective,
Yeah.
we see Google search volumes incrementally grow depending on the category, 10-15% a year. And that's been pretty consistent. Um, it depends. Again, that's a ballpark number. Someone's going to see this and be like, well, no, that's, but baselining it, Google search is like an ETF, right? Like it's going up. Um, so where is the cut? Where are we actually seeing an impact? Um, ChatGPT for sure. Now, tell me what percentage that is. I don't know what percentage of it um, is actually being impacted or is taking away from Google. It's probably something substantial. It's probably 20-ish% is my guess. But when you have search volumes continuing to grow, um, this is like perfect timing for Google and this antitrust litigation, because now, like, hey, like Bing is also making great strides right now, believe it or not. Like if you're running B2B, be on Bing. Like it's hard to scale past a certain threshold, but Bing's got some stuff going on. So the main impact, I think there's a lot of noise, and yes, these answer engines are going to be eating into Google 100%. And I'm not like putting my head in the sand on this. The question really is what's hurting organic search? And organic search's number one enemy is Google Ads. Full stop. Like the amount of real estate that's being gobbled up by Google Ads, especially on mobile, it's like 2 thumb scrolls
Yeah.
before you get
It's
to
a
the
lot.
first blue link. And so
Absolutely.
on top of that, you can get AI response, you can get the FAQ, you can get maps. So really,
You can get start
yeah,
shopping,
yeah. If it's a
yeah,
commercially or transactionally intent keyword, they're just putting you right into a shopping feed. So
totally.
really, like I think where SEO matters is on the fundamentals, right? Like the principles of SEO will make everything work better. Like, hey, if your website is slow, it's a best practice for Google that we make it faster. You need to be passing core web vitals. And so like all the things, like SEO is like working out and taking your vitamins. Like paid ads is like heroin, right? Like I love that analogy. If
Yep.
you're doing
It
if you're
is
doing
heroin.
SEO
It's
well,
it's an addiction, and you want to do it as
and
much
it's
as you
super
can.
expensive, right? Like You
It's
get
very
addicted to
expensive.
it.
Yeah.
It's super expensive.
And if you don't have it, you're going to go
Yeah.
crazy, because you're going to be broke. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like just by basically just doing SEO, you should see better conversion rates. Your site should be easier to navigate. Your CR, like your overall performance should be better if you're hitting that foundation layer before you even worry about increasing search traffic. So I think like that's part of the process, that also like why I think people are leaning in more. And also look at CPCs. Like they are getting insane. Like cost per clicks are through the
Yeah.
roof.
Talk about inflation
Oh my
with
God, CPC
CPCs.
inflation. Like, yes. Like, and I think a lot of that's also triggered by the ineffectiveness of Meta, right? Like up until recently, Meta was really tough. Like they've definitely made strides, but like, where's the smart money go? Well, we know these other platforms are challenged. Let's double down on intent because this is the platform that has intent. So, yeah. And then of course there's like the PMAX, the great PMAX myth. We were in the beta. We were one of the first teams in PMAX, and we had this one account, like literally like 10x ROAS, super high AOV, low CPCs on shopping campaigns. It was like literally you could set your clock to 10x ROAS. PMAX rolls out. Our ad reps are like, we want you to be in the beta for this with this account. We're like, heck yeah. Because typically, like if you're in a beta for something and it really works, like that's where like the fast money is made, right? Like that's where
Absolutely.
that
Yep.
whole like
That's where you get another 10, 20 clients just
right.
like that.
So like literally overnight, we turned PMAX on for this account. We don't change anything, right? We just converted shopping campaigns to PMAX campaigns. And overnight we went from like 10x ROAS to 17x, like literally within a week. And we were like, how are you doing this? And we're like looking at our customers that were coming in from this channel, and we had been running heavy exclusions on brand because we were really in kind of like an NCPA growth goal mode. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, like 93% of the traffic that was being bid on PMAX, that incremental boost was all brand, right? So it was like, so
It's all brand.
back then
Yeah.
we would literally have to like export lists, send it
Yep.
to our rep, do not bid on any of these. And then once we did that, we saw PMAX return to that kind of 10x. So I think there's always like, like there's always some shady stuff going on. Like PMAX will allocate towards like video ads and like display when things aren't really working right. And like, yeah. So it is getting back to like,
You got to take every conversion with a grain of salt. Every ad set, every campaign,
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it really
100%.
like, it comes back to like very much first principles with all these, like with all the craziness going on. Like there's some kind of rules that I live like the hard questions with. It's like our job as marketers is that more people know at the very foundation, more people know we exist today than did yesterday. Like that's physics. And if there's anything that's gonna like hurt us from hitting that first goal, then we really have to interrogate why we're going to be pursuing that tactic. And yeah, I'm very bullish on the future of SEO because it's going to evolve, and it won't be like, call it the instant pop of getting that page one that it was with all these layout shifts, but we're still talking about massive amounts of traffic. So I think for brands, they need to just like really think about whether it's the right tactic for them based on a lot of factors. Like, number one, where are you in the cycle? If you're super small, if your like domain authority is below a 20 or even like below a 30, go focus on paid ads, do everything else that you want to do. Um, if you're going after a really really tight niche that's really competitive and low search volume, I don't know if there's a play there. So I want to see a site that's done really really well, on every other channel that has great potential with massive search volumes.
Yeah, that's under optimized and has search
Yeah,
volume
and I think
opportunity.
like of our portfolio, I'd say Hexclad is like literally perfect.
Yeah.
They have like one of the most dialed marketing teams I've ever worked with. They brought us in to handle the SEO, and we're going after keywords that have hundreds of thousands of searches a month. So the incrementality of like, you know, if you're going after a keyword that has 5,000 searches a month, or a portfolio of keywords that maybe there's a couple 100,000, when you start getting into like mass search volume keywords, okay, now I'm like P2, P3. I've got a 5% CTR on that. Like that's going to move the needle. And so the problem with like, I think the way this, you know, this consolidation is happening is like for the little guys that haven't built a moat in SEO, it's going to take a lot of time and treasure to even get where you can compete against the big guys. And in e-commerce, the big guys are the biggest guys there are, right? Like any sort of product search, expect Amazon and Reddit to be on page one in the top
Be in there.
three. Expect there to be some listicle from Forbes, right? So it's really about like picking that, if that strategy is right for you, or if you're not, if you're actually looking for delving into SEO to drive meaningful traffic, and what's the time period for that to happen.
That's really great advice. And I love what you said too, is like, if you've got a low domain authority, like focus on
Yeah.
paid and like building some domain before start paying for backlinks and, a PR strategy and therefore,
I
yeah,
mean, I tell people all the time, like, you're not ready for this yet. Like, the formula that we worked off of is, you know, what's the percentage of revenue that should be invested in SEO for a big brand, right? And so we try and keep, like, when we're looking at a brand, like, our product market fit is really, I think, for the full Monty, you know, I think we're looking for minimum 10 million a year in rev. Now, obviously, you have a client that's, you know, PE backed, super smart, understands the vision,
has some high growth opportunity, good team
right?
behind it, good
Yeah.
marketing.
Then
Yeah.
that you know, obviously those numbers could go down to zero, but the brands that like really, you know, the ones that are doing it quite well are the monsters. Like they're just so big, um, and so if you're a young brand, if you haven't hit $1 million in rev, if you're not even at 5 million, you know, I think you should spend time setting things up for future success, right? Making sure you have the right structures. And I think this is why Shopify is such an amazing platform. Like Shopify comes essentially turnkey. As long as you don't mess with their structures,
Yeah.
it comes
Don't
don't
break
break
anything.
anything. Don't
Yeah.
customize it. Like pick
Yeah.
a good theme, and Shopify basically comes out swinging. If we take a WooCommerce site and put it on Shopify, the traffic is like WooCommerce. Put it on Shopify, boom. And that's even
Yep.
after we've changed all the URL structures. They'll all change, right? Because you go to collections, you get
Yep.
those super long
Yep.
URLs. So yeah, like Shopify is like pretty turnkey, and young brands. I mean, I always cringe when I hear someone's on like WooCommerce. I just feel like, oh god, like
I know. We did a replatform over summer for a young brand that just launched the beginning of the year in 2024. And they were just sold by an old school dev shop that said you need to be on WooCommerce. And I said, you know why they told you that you need to be on WooCommerce? It's because they're probably sending you a 4 or 5K a bill every month. And they're like, yep,
yeah,
what happens.
and
Yeah.
and I think what I see. So I think there's a few trends there with dev shops. One, oftentimes they have no regard for the impact of the decisions they make on a business, and I have literally seen,
They're just churn and burn. They're
dude,
like, we're gonna have a client, we're gonna do this one project, and then we're never gonna hear
and
from them
that
again.
and that's
Yeah.
really where Like that's like digital malpractice because if you're changing platforms and changing URLs and you're not bringing in an SEO team to handle that migration, the outcome is super binary, right? It's going to be an absolute failure or absolute success. If you're doing it right, you're cleaning up all your technical debt pre-migration, you're setting everything up properly, you're doing all your redirects, you're trying to harvest all the backlink juice you can. But we typically get called in after the fact, right? Like, hey, this dev shop, they got pulled into this or that, and it's just like literally, it's a cliff. It's like it's literally like they were crushing top threes, page one, SERP features, everything, and it just is like someone turned off the spigot. And you know, to some extent, a lot of that's like if we don't get in there within 30 days or even 2 weeks, it's gone. It's gone. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think the other trend I've seen in the last 12 to 24 months is this false sense of dev agencies convincing Shopify brands that they need to go headless. It is like a racket. Why? Because they don't need to go headless, number one.
100%. Headless was just such a fad. And everyone was not, and once again, what all Headless did was trying to convince brands that this will make your site faster and sleeker and cooler. But at the end of the day, it just made it more complicated.
And who profits? The dev shop. Like literally.
It's the ongoing development retainer, $150 to $180 an hour.
I've seen
with the black box of no one knows what's going on.
I am talking to a customer right now that is paying $20,000 a month.
Oh my God.
On a $30 million business. $30 million business is paying 20 grand a month just to keep things like just to keep this infrastructure up. And it's just like, okay, guys, take 20 grand a month and put it at any other marketing tactic, any single one, like anything, like buy a billboard on the 405 and you'll have a better ROI than keeping this infrastructure alive. And then also your internal team can actually handle the dev. So when the shit hits the fan on Black Friday and something breaks,
and it's catastrophic, right. It's $1 million loss.
Literally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was the wool being pulled over a lot of marketers' eyes and brands' eyes was this like absolute need to go headless. And look, don't get me wrong, like Shopify has some limitations for sure. Speed, JavaScript, sure. Like it has some issues. But you know what Shopify doesn't do on Black Friday? It doesn't break. It doesn't break. The amount of headaches I've had of WooCommerce and all these other platforms breaking, like I've gotten it to a point where it's like it's almost like the orders like stalled out for a second. I've gotten it to that level, and then it's like it all just data dumps. But yeah, it just doesn't break. So, and from an SEO standpoint, like it's pretty moron proof. Like it comes pretty turnkey.
Totally. I mean, at the end of the day, the last thing you want is risk during peak season where for some reason your server goes down and now or something happens and now you're making calls in the middle of the night or on a Friday into a weekend.
Or the random Woo plugin that decides to update and breaks the whole site.
That one plugin that updates on a Saturday night at 12:01 and now it breaks checkout on Safari on mobile and no one knows what's going on. Insane. Yeah, until someone spends 2 to 3 hours troubleshooting it on Monday and now you lost 48 hours of sales. It sucks. It's not worth it. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think consensus, it comes back to just doing the basics, keeping things simple and focusing on the fundamentals and traffic and the things that are actually going to move the needle, which is the marketing.
Also, like the basics of a great e-commerce product, like there's kind of like
Totally.
5 things that make a great e-commerce product, like low consideration, you know,
Yep.
mass
High
mass
margin
market
too.
appeal,
Yep.
high margin, easy to ship, low SKU count. I'll add a few more here. Ideally innovative. Um, I already hit easy to ship. You threw me off with the high margin, but yeah. And something that isn't a one time buy, right? Like one time buy shops are the hardest, where you have to make
Yeah.
profitability on first acquisition. That one's rough. That one's super rough. But you have that formula, and then you've got a great retention squad in there, and you can just keep going and sell a great product. That's great. And so when I see like some of the kind of the earlier companies that we meet with, I'm just going through my checklist. I'm like, okay, very, very niche, you know, super expensive, super hard to ship, one time purchase. Like, this isn't really a scalable business.
No, I couldn't agree more. Well, last question for you, just because it's AI and we want to talk
Yeah.
about it. And I know we've kind of mentioned a little, but AI search, and how is that, like, where do you how do you even harness and make an impact on AI search, right? Like if I'm going to search for what's the top 10 best, fishing hats for 2025, right? How does a brand have an impact on a chat GPT versus Claude versus Gemini or any other platforms out there?
Yeah. So without, like, I know this is like a cop out answer, but without the fundamentals of SEO, you're
Yeah, that's because
right.
that's what's
So
feeding it is
so
the
you're
internet. So
guaranteeing,
it's the
yeah,
best
without that
practices.
foundation level, right? Like, you're just kind of guaranteeing that you're not going to get that visibility. So that's why I think answer engine optimization in this current stage, where most of these platforms are very walled off, right? Their training data is fairly walled off. Um, I think it's really leaning into a lot of the functionality that you're getting from AI, Gen AI, and there's tools that help us measure that. And like things like FAQs and cert features, I think are really what we need to be looking at. But beyond that, I think it's also like, I see a lot of the results coming from like listicles on Forbes when you're asking a best question, and
Yeah,
that's what's like where I question the validity of a lot of those things, is, as like anyone knows, those Forbes, it's
it's
all
all
pay
pay
for
for
play
play.
affiliate.
Yeah,
So I think that's kind of like disingenuous, but I mean, hey, play the game, like get those affiliate links out there and pay for them. So I think that's a component part of it. Um, but really, where our head is without the foundational basics, you're guaranteeing you're not going to be in there. And I think the other component part of the way we're thinking is we're not really thinking about, hey, we're going to rank for this keyword, this individual keyword anymore. Like, we're really focused on content clusters and authoritativeness in the content nodes that we're putting out. And so for e-commerce, where I think the transition needs to happen, and like this is an evolution, is like, we've really, up until the last 6 months, we've been always like, these 10 blue links, we're going to get that to rank. We're going to get a product page to rank for that, right? It's going to rank and we're going to get direct traffic. And so as we've seen these layout shifts go directly to shopping and Google search, I think brands need to be really focusing on informational content hubs, non-transactional keyword searches. So yeah,
interesting.
really focused on.
Would you talk about like building out like almost subdomain sites that are knowledge hubs with like FAQs or more indexed information and things like that? You know what I think is really cool too. I don't know if you've seen this, but we're actually going to start doing it for us for Breadloaf. But Beehive, the newsletter platform, it allows you to build a site. You can either do a subdomain where it'll now index and turn every one of your newsletters into like a public blog. So your newsletter is going further than just being sent through email, as an email, which I think
I
is
wouldn't
interesting.
necessarily, in the context of AI, I think that's fine, but in the context of Google search, I think subdomains are really dangerous. Like I don't think people understand the impact of subdomains. I know they don't, because I think a lot of the times, like, that's like one of our immediate things that we
Yeah.
onboard is what subdomains exist, because in the eyes of Google, that's a completely different URL. And yes,
It's a
there are
different
some
type.
crossovers and things, but like, if you're running, you're just missing that opportunity. If your blog's out there collecting, you're putting out great content and other people are linking to it and you're getting great inbound links, and that's going to a subdomain, it's really going to dilute the impact to your core root domain. So I think the right subfolder structure in a blog would be always the much better way to go. But going back to your original question, which is like I think it was on the informational side. I think like being an authority on information based content nodes and providing that at scale is going to be the most important thing for making sure that we actually have those items out there for the training data.
That's great. I think that's a really good
It's a race. Again, it comes back to like, hey, if we're not creating this content, our competitors are, and then they'll be in the training data. So we have to really double down.
Absolutely. And the time's to do it right now, not another 2 or 3 years.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. No, I couldn't.
And the
agree
AI
more.
impacts
Well,
are
Frank,
like the tools. I mean, the tools that we're using now, like when we're meeting with customers, like we're using AI projection tools, like content map tools, like the tools that are out there are just phenomenal in helping us diagnose
I couldn't agree
the
more.
problem.
It's making, the tools for us marketers is just making us, it's given us superpowers. It's like putting us, putting a Superman suit on. I mean, you can move so much faster. You can make better decisions. You've got access with a couple clicks to come prepared to calls with like deep analysis that 6-7 years ago you would be diving in spreadsheets for hours to pull information. And now it's a couple clicks, it's a couple screen shares, which I think is great. And I can't wait to see where things are like in another 2 or 3 years, because this is the leap. I mean, just seeing where things have gone over the last year. I mean, we're testing out a couple platforms right now to build UGC AI ads. And now it's like our whole concept is like, let's prototype a script with UGC AI and B-roll and tie it together and see how it works. And if it hits, let's go remake it on a real shoot.
That's brilliant.
Right? With a couple of variations.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, Frank, thanks for joining us today. For anyone else that wants to get in touch with you, wants to learn more about you, or, what you guys do at Elk, or potentially wants, to get in and chat more about SEO for their company, where can they reach you?
I have the easiest email ever. It's frank@elkhq.com. So hit me up, and I check out our website as well. But yeah.
Awesome. I'll put your LinkedIn and your domain to the Elk domain in the show notes as well, so everyone can access it.
Awesome,
easily.
bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Frank. This was
great.
We
should just we should literally get like 2 or 3 other dudes and do a marketing all in.
We should totally do it. I'm totally down.
I have another guy. He's also an email guy, but he's more like computer tech, like building custom CDPs.
Dude, I would be totally down to do that, and we could, same time every week, just come round table. We could easily AI publish a blog